In our last video, we discussed leadership styles and how to find your own. If you didn't see that video, I'll post it somewhere in here. Let me encourage you to go back and watch that video if you haven't already, as this video will build upon the things that we talked about. My name is Jennifer Mitchell-Early. I help individuals and teams achieve organizational and personal success by providing customized training, resources, tips, and tools to help you pursue purpose and accomplish your goals. If you're looking to grow and evolve personally and professionally, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload new content. Each of the leadership styles that we reviewed has pros and cons. However, one leadership style may not be beneficial for every employee in all situations. Therefore, having an understanding of the different approaches to leadership can help leaders be more effective by comprehending how and why they do what they do, as well as helping them identify where and when they need to adapt or flex their leadership. Understanding how leadership has evolved demonstrates that effective leadership is not linked to one approach. Rather, it's a combination of knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors with a focus on both the task and those undertaking it. Therefore, leaders who can modify their style or approach to leadership in response to uncertain or unpredictable circumstances can adapt to change as they come, revise their plans to incorporate new innovations, and overcome challenges while still achieving their goals. Flexing your leadership style also impacts personal development, which creates positive climates in organizations shown to create greater job satisfaction, pride in work, collaboration, and creativity. One of the challenges of being a leader is to adapt your leadership style to the needs and preferences of your employees. Different employees may respond better to different types of leadership, depending on their personality, skills, motivation, and goals. For example, some employees may need more guidance and direction, while others may prefer more autonomy, that's me, and flexibility. A leader who can flex their leadership style to accommodate their employees can foster a more productive, engaged, and satisfied team. To flex your leadership style, you need to first determine your own dominant style and how it affects your interactions with your employees. There are many frameworks and tools that can help you assess your leadership style, such as the Blake Mountain Managerial Grid, the Hersey-Blanchard Situational Leadership Model, or the Goldman Emotional Intelligence Model. These models can help you identify your strengths and weaknesses as a leader and how you can adjust your behavior and communication to suit different situations and employees. For example, if you are a leader who tends to be more task-oriented and directive, you may need to flex your style when dealing with an employee who is highly competent and self-motivated. In this case, you may need to adopt a more delegating or empowering style, giving the employee more freedom and responsibility to complete their tasks without micromanaging them. On the other hand, if you are a leader who tends to be more relationship-oriented and supportive, you may need to flex your style when dealing with an employee who is new or inexperienced. In this case, you may need to adopt a more coaching or mentoring style, providing the employee with more feedback and guidance to help them develop their skills and confidence. Leaders who are unable to flex their leadership style may struggle to adapt to different situations and may not be able to effectively lead their teams. Here are some examples of leaders who face challenges in this area. Delegative leaders. These leaders separate themselves from the group and choose not to participate or interrupt the current trajectory of a project. Their comments are infrequent, and group members might even forget what these leaders look like by the time they finish the project. Autocratic leaders. These leaders are often prone to high levels of stress because they feel responsible for everything, and their lack of flexibility can lead to team resentment. Situational leadership. Some leaders are unable to effectively judge an employee's maturity level and may provide a leadership style that does not suit a particular employee or team. According to ManagingLifeAtWork.com, leadership flexibility is the ability to correctly diagnose the requirements of a situation and to respond accordingly with a viable leadership approach. It's the ability of a leader to adapt their leadership style to best serve their team. It can occur in both long-standing situations and times of change. For example, as council president and a learning and development consultant, I lean towards a democratic style of leadership, meaning that I often focus on encouraging feedback from others in order to build trust and respect among my team. I find that this style is very effective in cultivating a sense of buy-in when there's a big decision to be made, and can go a long way in motivating team members by offering a sense of empowerment and equity. As a coach, speaker, mentor, and minister, my leadership style is a combination of charismatic and transformational, in that I inspire positive changes in those who follow me. I am as concerned about the process as I am about helping every member of the group succeed by supporting, guiding, and inspiring hard work, dedication, loyalty, and high performance. If you like what you're hearing so far, make sure you hit the like button and tell me about your leadership style in the comment section below. Okay, let's get back to it. So, why do some leaders thrive while others flounder? Professional qualifications, the what's of leadership, matter, of course, but far more often we find that success depends on the hows. Specifically, how leader styles mesh with their teams and organizational cultures. The Harvard Business Review article, Finding the Right Balance and Flexibility in Your Leadership Style, by Jennifer Jordan, Michael Wade, and Tomoko Yoki, notes that it's an outdated idea that a leader should adopt a fixed leadership style that's questionable to the specific context in which he or she is operating. A single approach to leadership is not going to meet the myriad of challenges that today's leaders face. The reality for today's leaders is more complex than out with the old, in with the new. In research conducted with more than 1,000 managers across the globe, they found that some aspects of leadership that seem to be outdated, such as top-down decision-making and a focus on tactical execution, were extremely valuable to get through the uncertainty of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, rather than settling on a more static model of emerging behaviors, they found that 7 leadership tensions between the traditional and emerging worlds were a much more accurate way to describe the current state of effective leadership. Rather than perfecting a leadership sweet spot, a leader needs to develop and broaden his or her leadership sweet spot to a leadership sweet range. The wider this range becomes, the more effective or versatile the leader will be. Broadening the range of leadership capabilities requires progressing through 3 distinct stages. Stage 1, understand yourself. Cognitive self-awareness. The first step to building your leadership suite range is to be aware of your own natural strengths and weaknesses. That is, to build your cognitive self-awareness. This will provide you a baseline or default range where you feel most comfortable. Becoming more self-aware requires being open to external feedback, both formal and informal, as well as paying attention to areas in which you struggle or seek to avoid, or noticing when your colleagues aren't relying on you to complete a task or assignment. For example, one leader noticed that his colleagues tended to give him projects that required him to go deep and exploit an existing idea rather than venturing out with a team to explore new opportunities. After receiving direct feedback that confirmed his assumption, he realized that he needed to develop a broader, more curious outlook to provide the leadership to his team and what they needed during times of disruption in particular. Stage 2. Understand your environment, situational awareness. Leaders facing disruption must be able to interpret their environment. Understanding what features are present and what implications they have for the task at hand is important. It's both sensing and making sense of the world. First, you need to experience a given situation in a present and non-judgmental way. Next, you must identify the relevant stimuli from the environment and separate those from the noise. For example, a leader of a multinational fast-moving consumer goods company found that she was struggling with several complex problems that could benefit from wider viewpoints. After getting feedback in her annual 360 that she tended to speak more than listen, she realized that moving along the spectrum from a teller to more of a listener would improve her leadership effectiveness. Enter in intrapersonal emotional situational awareness. Leaders need to develop cognitive empathy, which is an awareness of the emotions of the people around them. This is both a trait and a skill. While some people naturally have stronger tendencies to sense others' emotions, this skill can also be improved through focused effort and practice. For example, the director for multi-channel marketing at a consumer goods firm proposed an ambitious plan for an upcoming campaign, but sensed doubt from her team. Her team lacked enthusiasm and seemed to procrastinate more than usual. She realized that she was placing too much emphasis on her own gut feeling, so she started to amass data to support her point of view. Some of this data went against the plan that she was proposing, which ultimately led to some key adjustments in the campaign. In addition to interpersonal awareness, a leader needs to develop intrapersonal awareness, or the ability to accurately sense one's own emotional state. Leaders who sense a strong emotion about a situation and listen to this emotion were using their intuitionist ability. Ideally, these leaders then also cross-check these internal signals with what the relevant data was suggesting. Stage 3, broaden your range. If you are fortunate, the most appropriate behavior in a given situation falls within your leadership suite range. In this case, the action is relatively straightforward. However, if the situation calls for a behavior beyond your range, then the gap will need to be bridged. The author suggests 3 approaches you can take to do this. Practice micro behaviors. Rather than undertaking a grand move to shift your behavior, you can target micro behaviors that move you closer to your end goal. A micro behavior is something small, maybe even seemingly insignificant, but consistent with the direction you want to move. Going back to our previous example of the multi-channel marketing director who was trying to become less driven by her desire for perfection and more comfortable with speed, she's practicing micro behaviors by pushing herself to make decisions by a particular point in time, let's say by the end of the day, regardless of whether or not she had all the available data. Another way to broaden your range is to seek out role models. You can often find motivation from peers who possess different capabilities and can act as role models for the kinds of behaviors you seek to develop and apply. For example, a finance executive leading a new risk management team for a shipping company received feedback that he was giving too many detailed short-term directions rather than painting a long-term picture of the future. In response, he actively sought out individuals both above and below him, whom he identified as visionary, and sought to learn from their behavior. You can also broaden your range by looking inside and outside your team for help. Sometimes working to bridge the gap between your default style and the most appropriate response would be inefficient in terms of time and effort. In such cases, the wisest plan of action is to look either inside or outside of your existing team to fill the gap. For example, a young risk manager at a fintech company realized that he was strong at adapting his behavior to meet the context of their fast-changing environment. However, his team was often confused as they were unsure about which constants they could rely on. Noticing that several team members were strong communicators about fundamental values, he relied on them to edit all of his internal presentations to always have a red thread that linked with previous messaging, or a through thread. Now let's practice what we learned. Listen to the following scenario. You notice that one of your team members, who is usually very productive and proactive, has been underperforming and disengaged lately. You decide to have a one-on-one conversation with the employee to understand the root causes of the issues and offer support. What's your leadership style? Do you see a need to flex your style in this instance? If you do or don't need to flex, how would you handle it? I'd love to know it in the comments. Leave it below. In our example, the leader adopts a coaching style of leadership, which involves asking open-ended questions, listening actively, and providing constructive feedback. The leader avoids being directive or authoritative, as this might demotivate the employee further. The leader also shows empathy and compassion and acknowledges the employee's strengths and achievements. The leader helps the employee identify their goals and challenges and co-creates an action plan with them to overcome the obstacles and improve their performance. The leader also offers to provide ongoing guidance and resources and to check in regularly on the employee's progress. The leader's flexible leadership style helps the employee feel valued, respected, and empowered, and it boosts their morale and engagement. The time has passed when a precisely sharpened set of leadership skills was enough to steer an organization into the future. There's not one leadership style that works for all contexts. For example, in some situations, it'll make sense to tell people what to do, whereas asking open-ended questions will work better in others. You might need to adjust goals as new information emerges, or under certain circumstances, stick exactly to the plan. Leaders who are able to pivot their approaches perform better than those who can do a few things very well. Thus, organizations need leaders who can shift along with the environments in which they operate, which requires a continual progression of self-awareness, situational and emotional intelligence, and behavioral experimentation in order to broaden their behavioral range. Leaders need to experiment with different behaviors and approaches, learning over time which ones are right for a given context, as well as amassing new behavioral experiences. Therefore, you should adjust your style based on the people you're managing, the context in which you're leading, and the outside pressures you're under. To navigate tensions like these, you need a good deal of self-awareness to understand your natural tendencies. What's your default position? Do you tend to be more of a traditional leader, or do you align with a more adaptive, fluid style? If you're not sure, get feedback from others. Then learn, adapt, and practice. The goal is to develop a portfolio of micro behaviors you can employ when the situation demands you use a different style. And look to your employees for signals on when it's appropriate to favor one approach over another. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.